Let's explore the Gramex IDE. When you visit Gramex, which is at gramex.graminer.com, you'll be asked to log in, and you can choose to log in with your Google ID or your Microsoft ID. I'm going to choose my Microsoft ID, and because I'm already logged in on Microsoft, it brings me quickly to the homepage of graminer.com. I could have chosen to log in with my Google ID as well. By default, my profile information is available on the Gramex homepage. I can also change the themes, look at notifications, and so on. The homepage itself has two sections. On the left-hand side, it, apart from welcoming me, allows me to create a new project or start from an existing app. And there are a couple of apps already listed on my list of apps. And these are starter apps, and more are to come. If I already have created apps, those would appear at the bottom, but in this container, I have not created any apps. On the right hand side, there are links that help me learn more about Gramex and the latest releases around Gramex as well. What we're going to do now is start by creating a new project. Let me click on Create New Project. That opens a pop-up where I can enter the project name. I could also instead clone from a GitHub project, but that's not what we're going to do. I'm going to call this project, let's say, First App, and click on Create Project. Now at this point, it shows me the first application that I had created. I can create any number of projects here. So if I clicked on Second App, this would create another project. And these two projects are sorted at the moment based on user ID, which is actually all the same, but I could instead sort based on when they were created. So now first app is shown first and then second app, or I could sort based on the port, the container status, and a series of other parameters that we are not going to go into right now. Now let's take a closer look at each of these apps. So this card has the name of the app, information around when it was created, and the app status, which at the moment is toggled off. But when I click on this toggle switch, it starts the app. Let's take a look at this again. It says app is now enabled. I'm going to do that again. The second app is now ready and is enabled. What that means is the app has started. You can choose to turn on or off any of the apps at any point. So when you turn it off, it's being put into the equivalent of hibernate mode. You can get it back up and running at any point just by clicking on that toggle switch. The advantage of putting it into hibernate mode is that it will not take any resources. And when it's available and the app status is blue, you can click on edit to edit the app or launch to launch the app. By default, when you launch an app, it opens a page that is pretty plain and simple. It just says welcome to Gramex, and you can click on the learn more icon to go to the Gramex guide. What we're now going to do is edit this app, specifically the home page, and change the contents a little bit purely through the UI. Let's click on edit. That opens up the Gramex IDE Editor, where what we have is on the left-hand side, sections where we can put in basic details about the app, where we can load data, where we can run simulations, where we can edit pages, where we can do analytics, where we can deploy, and there is also a code editor. What we're going to start with is the page editor, where there are a gallery of components. These could be user interface components like layout sections, images, and so on. Or they could be microservices which are used to create pages, and there's a long list of those. Or they could be built-in apps by themselves, which will be coming up soon. On the right-hand side is the page where on the right-hand side is a section where I can actually edit the page contents. So I can choose to either edit pages or microservices. Pages are where we drag and drop UI components. Microservices are what get created when we add a microservice. For now, let's start with adding some contents to a page. We already have a page, index.html. That's the home page. That is always available when we start the app, and that's what we saw a short while ago. So if I click on launching the app, this page that you see is index.html. Let's select that page, and you see that the contents of the page is what we have here. Let's get rid of this learn more button, and we'll replace it with our own content. So I'm going to select that and click on the delete button. Now save it, and let's launch the app again. We still have this. Now let me click on the save icon. and it says file saved successfully. Now let me launch the app, and that shows me the page without the icon. Great. Next, what we'll do is add a two-column section right below. Let's add it maybe out here. Yeah, one below, two columns that are one below the other. Now let me add a two-column section out here. And you see these are right below the other, not quite like this, but that's because of this, the resolution. These are responsive. So as I zoom out, they end up being horizontal. But when I zoom in, if the content is too small, it will reorient itself to a vertical layout. Now within this, I'm going to add some content. We'll start by adding an image to each of these sites. So let's click on image. No, let's do this again. We'll start by adding an image to both sections. So let's drag and drop an image here. So we can either upload an image from the local file system, or we can type the path to a specific image. So I'm going to go to Pixabay and find an image. So let's take the first image here, copy the image address, and let's add that out here. That allows me to add this image, and this is clearly too large, so we want to reduce the size. Now that can be done by changing the properties of the image on the right hand side. Let me zoom out a bit so you can see a bit more of the properties. So there are general properties, there are layout properties, and so on. And one of the properties in layout is the width. So let's reduce that to maybe 500 pixels. That's one way of reducing the size. You could also just increase the size, reduce the width, squash it in any way you want. Now, this obviously is not such a great idea. So let's get this back to auto and change the overall dimensions like this, so that we have a width of 480 and a height of 320. Let's add another image to the right hand side. Let's drag and drop the image here, and this could be a cello whose image address we copy, paste it out here, add the image, select the image to insert it, and that gives us something whose width we can again set to the same as what we had earlier, 480. Now, this page, let's save it. And now that it's been saved successfully, let's launch the page. And we have the same two images that are stored in a responsive set of containers. This approach allows us to create a container in which you can drag and drop components, and these can be simple components and they can be interactive components, as well as microservices, which we're going to cover in another section. And they can also be microservices, which we're going to cover in another section. No, actually, let's not even bother doing that. I'll say, and you can add microservices, which we'll be covering later.